So what we are trying to do over here is really trying to learn how to determine, why, you should even be doing an MBA in the first place. Um, and, this is one of the questions that Crackverbal has tried to answer. So this is something that I feel is a question to which you need to get to an answer, whether it is through an MBA, okay? Yeah, especially if you look at the ROI, correct? What is involved? How do I make that decision? So a lot of people are actually confused, with this question, correct? So I'm going to be talking about that a little bit about me. So my name is Arun Jagannathan. So I'll be the co-speaker today. And I am the founder of Crackverbal. So many of you are my students. I know that from the names, and many of you might have seen my videos on YouTube. So I help people coach for their career. Yes, this recording will be available. In fact, I'll be talking about that very shortly, correct? But just wanted to let you know that you can, by the way, connect with me on LinkedIn. So the way I look at it is, don't look at it as just an MBA. Try to look at it in terms of your this. So just wanted to address this. So the Stanford University GSB, so that they run a niche program only for entrepreneurs. So the faculty that comes for this program is actual Stanford GSB faculty. So a lot of faculty that I have learned were people who teach at GSB, correct? So in that sense, but it is a program that is more to do with helping you understand how a business is run, correct? So I think one of the perspectives that I bring to the table is I also am an entrepreneur, so I understand what are the strengths of each function. Because I hope you understand that we are, and this is something that Hari is going to be talking about later today, but we are living in turbulent times, right? How many of you feel that your job or your industry is going to go through a massive transformation in the next 2 to 3 years? Do you agree? So either your function or your industry, right? So there are a lot of things that are within our control, things that are perhaps not within our control, and COVID being one of the biggest, things that ends up making us all wonder, correct? So I would say, see, the change was happening. Anyone who says that the change was not happening is incorrect. There was a larger change towards digitization, right? That was happening, and this accelerated the whole thing. And I can say that because in my own journey at Crackverbal, so I also teach the GMAT, right? So it's a dual hat that I wear. So one hat I wear is as a career coach. Many of you have seen me as a GMAT where I've dealt into the depths of sentence correction, correct? But that is not the role that I'm playing today. I'm talking more from tomorrow's this. So I think it's not a fad. I think digitization is definitely not a fad. There is a acceleration that's going to happen. Don't worry, I'll charge my phone. But there is a change that has started, and I don't think that the change is really going to come to an end anytime soon. Correct? So what I'm hearing from a lot of students, and if I were to kind of ask you, right, just before that, I'll just give you some ground rules. So you can use the chat window for any chat that you want to do. In case you want to just share your opinion, please feel free to do so. And I may not be able to answer questions while the chat is going on, and even later when Hari comes, we may probably want to focus on what we have to share with you. And post that, we will, having a Q&A session. So we will make sure that all your questions are getting answered. So we'll make sure we do that. So let's get that. Just one second. Oh. All right. So cool. So I think the first question that yeah, so someone also had this question, which is the webinar recording will be provided to you post the session on email. However, as I said, towards the end, both Hari and I, we are going to be kind of staying back to help you answer questions. We will may not be able to get into the specifics because it may not be possible for us to look at a very specific profile and do that, but we can give you some general advice about career, right? So that is really my intention today. And Rachel, maybe you can pass on the link for the, profile evaluation. So just on that reason, right? So we have a profile evaluation, and what we try to do in profile evaluation is really try to answer this question, correct? So if you ask me, this is the question that I think you need to answer, even if you are at an advanced level. So just wanted to check how many of you are planning to do an MBA. Just giving out a poll. So just wanted to make sure that I'm addressing the right audience, right? So I'm addressing two types of audiences. So I'll tell you who the two types are. Okay. So I'm going to be ending the poll. So let's see. Yeah, I think that could be this planning to do an MBA is the word, not do an MBA. So I think it's a modifier issue. So thanks for catching it. It should have been, this year, how many of you are planning to do an MBA? So all right, so I'm just projecting the scores over here. So vast majority of you are planning to do it this year, which means you plan to take the GMAT and you plan to, do an MBA. And there is a second category, which is maybe you're undecided. Okay. So let me give you a classic scenario. And I'm just trying to say that it's perfectly okay for you to feel that way. So what has happened is you have essentially moved on in your career. You have a couple of years of experience, correct? Now you see a lot of your friends doing this thing called an MBA. You don't know what it is, but it seems like a very interesting thing to do with your time, because in your current company, anyways, things are in a flux. Funding has stopped, okay, or there is any kind of adverse impact that you're seeing. Maybe you're in retail, you're in hospitality, right? And when there is a rough market, when there is a recession, and when there is a job loss, right? You probably want to look at doing an MBA to help you tide over this time, correct? So I think that's also a very valid, kind of expectation to have in terms of, pursuing this. And, I just wanted to also stress on the word that, I said MBA, correct? Is there a relevance to the word MBA, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you another question, which is, what do you think are the risks that you think happens when you end up doing an MBA? Because we also need to look at the risks, correct? Wonderful. I see a lot of you. This you may have multiple reasons, but maybe you want to just pick the one that is most. Um, I'm pretty sure some of you want to say all of the above. Anybody wants to say that? You can let me know in the chat window. All of the above, right? So yeah, I agree. In some sense, these are very valid risks, and many of these are also, micro risks. Some of them are macro risks. So I think any decision that you make. So going back to what I said in terms of, so so if you look at it, 40% of you think that it may impact, getting internships. Some of you feel that networking might get hampered. Some of you feel the whole experience of doing an MBA is actually being there in the class, right, with them. And finally, you also look at it and say, well, given the way it is, am I not sharing the poll results? Debajyoti, you're able to see that? Yeah, so yeah, okay. So if you see, visa may not be that big a thing because you may be thinking that end of the day, if nothing else, there is ISD. But tell me honestly, even there, how many of you are worried that you are going to be spending, you know what is the cost of an MBA in ISD? No, sir. It's actually, it's up. If you look at it, there are a lot of costs that you have to take into consideration. So you are now going to question yourself that look, not just this, but there is also an opportunity cost. Correct? So whatever your salary is, you are now going to know, kind of this. Yes, if you are looking at something abroad, it may be even in the excess of 1 crore. So, I had one student, I'll tell you her name was, yeah, she went to INSEAD. So she actually was working in Singapore, okay? So she was in TCS, she went to US, and from US, she went to Singapore. So she had this. So when she applied to INSEAD, I don't know if you know this, but INSEAD is a school that actually looks at you know, your experience in terms of your international profile, right? Why do they look at it? Because they know that the leader of the future is a person who has a global perspective. In fact, Hari has gone to IMD. IMD Switzerland, in case many of you have not heard of, is a very reclusive school. I mean, how do I put it? There are 90 seats every year, correct? The local residents over there call them the monks because they are just studying 16, 18 hours and it's a 10-month program. Okay. The average age is 31, correct? Because what they feel is that at that age, you have very clear idea of what you want out of life. In fact, one of the things that they do is they appoint a kind of career service, and I hope I'm not stealing the thunder from what Hari has to say. But the thing is, there is a career services that is also appointed. So they ask you fundamental questions about what you want to do, because the idea is not to look at an MBA in terms of just one second. Okay, Hari is joined.
I am here. I am here.
Okay, great, Hari. So I was just talking about you. Excellent time for you to kind of join in. So I want to just welcome Hari over here. So Hari, we were just talking about how overall, the reason to do an MBA is going to be important. So what I could do is maybe have you take over, and I will just stop my screen. Maybe you can share yours.
Um, I I don't have it on. Okay, I'll have to open my screen. Just give me a second.
I can go through this, no problem. Hari, I'll
Yeah,
go through this. Okay?
if you can hold it. Given I'm already late. Firstly, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Hari Raghuchari. For those of you who don't know me, or know me, I've been about 15 years out of an MBA in IMD, which is the school that I graduated from. Things have changed since then. Things have changed a lot. LinkedIn did not exist, or LinkedIn started in the March of that year. I was in IMD, which is 2005, and Facebook had started about 6 months earlier. So so things have changed since then, and I went to IMD at a time when things were a bit different. But I am from India. I am actually from Chennai. Well, now Chennai, because my parents and in-laws are both retired out there. And I've been working before IMD. I worked for 7.5 years for a company called Maersk, AP Moller, shipping, logistics, containers. If you've seen the Blue Star, that's it. and started my career as a GET in Larsen and Toubro, a common career in those days. And currently I work for Johnson and Johnson. Okay, I did not go from J&J in India. I sort of had a choice between consulting and a company like J&J out of IMD. I chose J&J and family over consulting and divorce. So those were the choices I made then. Would I have made the same choice again? Well, that's a healthy debate we're going to have. That's part of the discussion today. Okay. So thank you all for the opportunity, and thank you Arun and Rachel for giving me the opportunity to speak. It's a pleasure to join all of you.
Right.
Okay.
And I think I just wanted to, get you started. So I'll just go through the slides. So Harry, you could maybe just let me know when to go. I'll go through the slides. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Arun. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Right. So the reason I wanted to talk to you guys about is, firstly, you will notice from the slides that are about to come, doesn't look particularly neat or professional. The words may also be a bit telegraphed. That's because I wanted to speak rather than present you a lot of fancy slides. Let's move to the next one, Arun. What I wanted to talk to you about is a few things, and Arun already was alluding to it. For a lot of people, for a lot of Indian, us Indians, the Indian way of thinking is, hey, we need to complete all of our education all at once. Well, that thing has been left behind a bit. So it has evolved a bit for most Indians to say, hey, I have to do an MBA and I have to do only an MBA, right? That's the point that I'd like to sort of cultivate a healthy debate about. Is it really only about the education? Okay. So what I am going to argue, and if I could take a step back, it's also that the world keeps changing. The world is very different. Ways of working have changed. Automation has taken hold. And not to mention, and I've spoken to this through the current class of IMD, where I go back every year to talk to the class that is attending in any forum. And they're an incredibly brave bunch to have come to do their MBA at a time like this. Okay, at a time where the job scene is apparently not that great, where economies have tanked completely, and recovery is at best a while off. Right, to be able to do that now, all of those guys are incredibly brave, but all of you will not necessarily face the same context. So it's not going to be it may not necessarily be as alarming as it sometimes seems. However, what I do want to say through this presentation is that the world will change. The world will change fundamentally. You must have heard it through various presentations, speakers, leaders, LinkedIn feed, Facebook feed, so on and so forth. But you need to understand that before you embark into deciding what sort of education, what sort of skill building, because education is a form of skill building, what sort of education you want to seek from wherever you want to go and whatever you want to do. Right. So the slides out here that have been slapped together, basically, it's sort of some perspective, a little bit of insight into those things. Okay. I will talk about future adaptability. And most of you would have heard the phrase future proof. There is no such phrase. Okay, so get it out of your mind. There is nothing called future proof. We can never be future proof. If there is disruption, there is going to be disruption. You cannot future proof yourself against disruption or evolution. What you can do is adapt yourself to disruption or evolution. Okay, and it's an important distinction. There is nothing called future proof. Even so Tesla today disrupted the automotive industry. Tomorrow there are going to be companies that will disrupt Tesla, not necessarily with the way electric cars are built, but with the way electric cars are actually mass marketed. Okay, yesterday even this guy, what's his name, Elon Musk, was predicting the future in that batteries will drive 1,000 kilometers. Electric cars will start costing $25,000 versus the $125 that they cost today. So what are you going to do at a time like this? What do you need to know? What do you need to learn? What are the sort of fundamental or intermediate skills that will help you? Would you get them through experience? Would you get them through education, right? in the end, the conclusion you might end up drawing is, hey, I still want to do only an MBA. Or the conclusion you might draw is, hey, I don't want to do a plain vanilla MBA because the MBA skills I will learn on the job through various forums, various experiences, and so on and so forth. But I'd rather spend my time learning something really more technical, relevant, future adaptable, so on and so forth. Okay, and that's what this entire discussion is about. The words that are on the slide are to aid you to think. They are not solutions, they are not answers, they are a thinking aid. And that's how I'd like you, Arun would like you, and I would like you to take away the perspectives from this session. Arun, was there anything else you wanted to add here before we move on?
I think you were kind of spot on. So while I was going to introduce you, one more thing that I wanted to tell about IMT, and whenever I hear about that school, there is one thing that I 50. So there are 90 nationalities, and sorry, there are 90 seats, and there are about 45 to 50 different nationalities. Am I right?
That's right. Approximately the average age is about 32.
Right. So I think that also kind of the perspective that you have. I'm sure there are people who are also slightly older in terms of experience level.
Right.
So I think
now,
sometimes I look at it and, yeah.
That's correct. I did my MBA when I entered business school when I was 30. The oldest person in my class was 38. The youngest was 26. Okay. But most of us were in 31 to 32 range. Okay. So can you share a bit of undergraduate growth? Sorry, I should shut my chat window down. I'm an engineer, electrical engineer, Gujarat University. Okay, anyone wants to know? It was a long time ago. Okay, for all of you who want to know, I'm 45 years old, so I'm pretty old. So
That's a connection there. So I did my masters from Gujarat. I grew up in Vadodara, so I think you spent time in Ahmedabad. So I think
yes, we were neighbors. We found out later.
Right.
Okay. Question here and the key challenge here is to always ask ourselves, what's really going to help me? Why do I really want to leave all this and go for an MBA? And the reason I ask this question is because, over the years, Arun and I, and we've been part of multiple forums. It's actually one of those forums where Arun and I actually ran into each other virtually before we met face to face a few years later, where the common question was, I'm sick and tired of my IT job. I'm sick and tired of my manufacturing job. I want to go abroad and make a lot of money. It was almost always pretty standard questions of people who seemed a bit tired of life, right? Our key question always seemed to be was, okay, so what are you doing right now exactly, and why are you, and what are you doing? What are you learning? What did you learn? Why did you learn it? So we all make certain choices. The old years of the old time of and we could understand. We did have some empathy because a lot of people do engineering or medicine or whatever it is because they don't have many choices. When we ask them things like either Arun in his own way or me in my own way, we would ask them, so why exactly did you choose this job? Yeah, because it was the only company that came to campus. So we would scratch our head and say, so was campus companies your only career option, right? So that's where it all started. That's where we thought about why this thing around education, and why not just plain skills? What are you really acquiring? Why would you want to leave such hard-earned skills behind just to go do an MBA? How will it help you? I want to change my career. That's great. But what about the stuff you've done so far, right? These were some of the things that, it's not like Arun and I we were wondering, hey, we have all the solutions. We were wondering, so why are people like this? So what questions should we help them ask about themselves, right? Sorry to get a bit philosophical, but this is where it all started. And, that's why I want to talk to you about future adaptability. I'll use the word, there's a difference between employment and employability. And Arun, if we move to the next slide.
Oh, I'm sorry. There is no animation, right? It's okay without animation.
No, absolutely, absolutely. I mean,
All right.
this is, again, it's not supposed to be a presentation. It's supposed to be a
All right.
discussion. The words are more for us so that we
Yeah.
don't forget, Arun, right? Um,
Right.
so it's about long-term employability. So when you do your education, you become an engineer, you become a scientist, you become a lawyer. You're you're probably educating yourself for what hopefully is a long career, right? But then, that first education might not always be always help you either keep abreast of the skills that you need, or certain things might be required to get into a certain job market or a context or a company or an industry. Okay, but that first education you do also ensures that, sorry, the education you do needs to ensure some degree of employability, and another word would be job market survivability, job market persistence, right? If all of us did only commerce degrees and wanted to become bankers, there isn't enough jobs to get us there, particularly in an industry that's going to get more and more automated, right? Um, Secondly, we all need to learn technical skills, right? We all need to understand our numbers. We all need to understand at least the rudiments of science and things like that. But at the age we get to, say the late 20s, the late 30s, which is when the itch to do these MBAs starts, whether full-time, part-time, or any other degree, you need to look at your education as an investment, not for your early 30s, which is when you do it. You need to look at it as an investment for your early 40s. Remember, you are doing because that's when your MBA starts to deliver your returns. So if you find a way and say, and I want to do finance and I want to study corporate finance, you've got to understand what corporate finance is going to look like 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and to understand your employability in that area. Okay. Therefore, one of the key things we ask or we suggest or recommend for people is, when you think of education, think of yourself or imagine yourself or visualize yourself using that education 5 to 15 years down the line. Okay. And use and try to get the education that will help you those 5 years, those 10 years, those 15 years. You will not have time. You will all have families, kids, old parents to take care of. You won't have much time to educate yourself then. So whatever you consider, make sure that education is going to help you. It's going to last. It's going to persist for a while. Okay. Let's think about, in order to make you help that decision, let's move to the next slide and talk about, what are the factors, what are the industries that are going to how to think about them, right? Um, you need to think, when you think about industries, again, we're not here to give you, hey, this is right for you, or that is right for you, but how are they changing? Okay. If you thought industries or things have changed only because of COVID, get that thought out of your mind. Things are already changing, be it automation, be it electric cars, be it sustainability, renewable energy, healthcare, biologics, so on and so forth, personalized healthcare, bioinformatics. There's a bunch of different keywords that you can use, but things were already changing before COVID. Okay, but COVID accelerated a few trends that we already saw. COVID accelerated flexible working arrangements. COVID accelerated e-commerce in some countries. Of course, there will be some deceleration to that once economies come back to line. But COVID also devastated automotive and cars. And most importantly, if you've seen, if there's no planes flying in the sky, if there's no trains running around, if there's no traffic in the streets, you probably know that COVID has devastated travel and tourism completely. I mean, airlines have been decimated, decimated. Automotive companies are selling fewer cars than they ever did. Okay, um, energy will change. Oil and gas, energy through oil and gas will not will not will probably not will probably fall off, not necessarily off a cliff, but it will decline. But renewable sources of energy, the use of electricity for power, is going to increase, right? So you need to think about, do I want to get into oil and gas, or do I want to get into fossil fuels, unless the fossil fuels have a use and an application that is not substitutable with anything else. Okay, let's talk about healthcare. How has healthcare changed? Okay, let's talk about technology. How's technology changed? Scope of technology and the tech industry, right? Where is technology being applied? So for a lot of you, I'm sure when you start talking about technology, just technology, most of you look at your smartphones. Most of you look at Flipkart or Amazon or something like that, and Microsoft and Google and Facebook, and think, oh, that's technology. No, technology is what will be the materials that will shape energy, transport, auto, healthcare in the future. That is technology, right? Material science is technology. Space exploration is technology, right? New forms of hardware, new forms of virtual reality, new forms of building materials, construction technologies. That is technology. So don't think of technology purely in the gamut of computing. Okay, so expand your horizons a bit, right? Um, Ways of working will change drastically across industries. Manufacturing will not be condensed manufacturing, condensed human labor manufacturing anymore. You will have automated or semi-automated manufacturing for just about everything. Imagine what needs to go into making an automated or a semi-automated thing work. I'm not going to sit down and draw it all out for you, but I'm going to ask you to all to go back to your homes, start doing some research and start thinking. Okay, discover the world beyond you. All right, and that's why I focused on technology, because for a lot of people, and even among my own friends, right, when they say, oh, it's really tech, oh, it's really cool, man, it's almost always something to do with what you can do with phone and an app, right? When I start telling them, hey, look at um, the way this fence has been constructed, or look at the thing that look at this cool lawn mowing machine, which is like, whoa, look, the cool robotic lawnmower. They look at me and say, okay, they don't believe that's particularly technology. So think about these things, how things work, what things we use in our daily life. All of that involves technology. Okay, designing them, making them, delivering them, all of that involves technology. Guys, just hold on a second. Hold on a second.
Sure. No, I think as Hari was pointing, one of the interesting
Sorry,
things
I'm
that
back.
so yeah, I just wanted to ask one question. Thanks for that opportunity. So just sneak my question in.
Yeah.
How was changed in your experience? The industry, what you have seen in your capacity.
Can you repeat your first couple of words again? How is what changing?
I'm saying if you could just give some example of what you have seen changing since you are in the consumer technology, correct?
Okay.
So any you are seeing, yeah.
I gave you the example of let's take gardening. Okay, I own a house. It has a substantial garden, right? And I have neighbors who also have gardens. Like a few years ago, just a few years ago, it's not even, we're talking 2006, 2007. Most people who would mow their lawns would have a mechanical lawnmower, the thing that would really make that crinkly metallic noise as it would cut the grass. And then a few years later, the first electric lawnmower came out, made with a Siemens motor, I forget the brand. Now, in 2015, okay, any one of you have heard of this company called Husqvarna? Husqvarna. If for those of you who are motorcycle lovers, you must have heard of Husqvarna motorcycles, but they are a significant maker of gardening equipment. Okay, so they came out with something called the Automower. Right, I think this was 2012 or 13. It looks like a large ladybug, okay, with wheels underneath. But if you see a YouTube video, I won't steal its thunder. You just got to see a YouTube. Yes, that's right. It's a Swedish motorbike company, but they also make robotic lawnmowers. Just like you have robotic vacuum cleaners. If you've heard of the band called iRoomba, okay, Roomba iRobot, sorry. So that's a change in technology, right? I mean, you need wires, computing. You need programmable logic to make what was essentially a very demanding, physically demanding task into something robotic. That thing can actually turn. That thing works in the rain. It detects obstacles and barriers, and once you're done doing it, it just goes back to its own charging station where it just clicks and locks in, and it stays there. You can leave it exposed to the sun. It's got a composite cover plus very fancy instrumentation inside. I'm not an electronics engineer, but you can imagine, and that's a change, right? If anyone was expecting, I'm sure you guys were expecting something like Google or Facebook and how I use one of them and apps and so on and so forth. By the way, the Automower is app controlled. Another big technology change I've seen in electric cars. I have sat in a Tesla. I've driven a Tesla. It's a bit beyond my reach from a cost perspective, but that thing is brilliant, right? You wonder, the entire experience of driving a diesel car with all of the rumble inside, the fact that everything in a Tesla just feels easier naturally than it would in a normal car. Forget the fact that it's app controlled. Forget the fact that it's got the big screen, touch screen, and all of that. Forget all about it. The pure driving experience, a Tesla is wonderful, and that is because of the way, not just because of the electric powertrain, but also the fact that Tesla has figured out how to transfer power to the wheels without losing too much by way of electromotive friction. Okay, so the amount of electromotive loss is power loss is extremely low in a Tesla. Long answers, a lot more examples, and if I can't meet all of you socially, but if you take two examples that you see every day with my eyes, but that would be. Is that okay, Arun?
Yeah, I would, and the reason why I think what your perspective you're offering is very refreshing is because I think a lot of times in India people tend to equate technology with coding, with software jobs, correct? So if people say you're in technology, it means I'm a programmer, but it's a lot.
But technology is not computing, guys. Let's put it this way: technology is not just about computing. Okay, right. Digitization is not just about software. Digitization is about the materials and the hardware and the assets you build around it. Not just the computing assets, but also the material science assets associated with it. Right. The IMD question on the chat box, I will get there. We have some time. I'll talk about it also. I initially this was not about IMD, but I just wanted to therefore spend some time. We'll move over to the next slide. And as you do that, as you think about industries, as you think about work, as you think about industries, as you think about companies, think about where we will go. You need to think of your career and your chosen industry. As you think of your career 10 years ahead, 15 years ahead, you've got to think of the industry 10 years ahead, 15 years ahead. Be a bit predictive about it, okay? You cannot go to your education nowadays, which costs 150, 200 grand anyway, or some such ridiculous number, right? And think, oh, I just want a job. You'll get a job, right? If you go to a good school and right school, you'll get a job. But what you want to do is you want to grow into that job. You want to grow into that career. You want to grow into that career. You want to, and I am answering that question, career goals, right? So someone asked in the chat box about career goals. It's a good question. I can't tell you, I mean, my career goals were rather less evolved then. All I wanted to do was to be in the supply chain operations space, either as a consultant or as a practitioner or as an industry practitioner. Um, but I hadn't decided, is it going to be in healthcare? Is it going to be in shipping? Is it going to be in automotive? Is it going to be in something? All I knew is I love the idea of supply chain. I love the idea of operations. I love the idea of problem solving and moving stuff from A to B, or getting stuff from A to B. And dealing with the complex problems associated with that was something like I wanted to be a deep expert, but also probably become a deep enough expert so that that expertise would help in having a long career with a company that turned out to be Johnson and Johnson. Okay, today, 15 years after IMD, you can all have a little thing, but I manage a 10-figure portfolio of business. I am in the world of procurement, but yeah, it's about buying stuff. But a lot of my work goes into understanding what my suppliers do every day, every day. It may always be talked about in the dollars I save, but no, the dollars I save is important. It's important as an outcome. But my journey to think about how to save that next dollar or how to bring in the next dollar for J&J is what I want to do. That's the problem that I really want to solve. All right. And overall, if I thought of my goal 15 years ago, yeah, I think I have reasonably achieved what I set out to do. Let's put it that way. I can't always say that everything has been achieved exactly like I thought about it. Right. So when we think of industries that have high potentials and you think of your goals, look at how healthcare will change. Look at how life sciences and things like surgery will change, right? One of the greatest advancements in surgery over in the late 90s and the early 2000s was, you must have on TV they call it keyhole surgery, right? Technical terminology for it for those who have experience of working. J&J robotic surgery, very nice. So those who have experience, it's called arthroscopic surgery, right? Which is essentially a little incision. You can do it under local anesthesia. You insert an arthroscope. The arthroscope has a machine at the end, and it does the little thing inside the body, and then it comes out and just shut the keyhole. Right? Arthroscopes, endoscopes, laparoscopes, those were advancements in surgery that reduce the invasive nature of surgery. The next great advancement in surgery is going to be things like what we call power assisted energy devices in surgery, where machines don't simply cut, machines vibrate, and vibrate so fast that the tumor is actually vaporized with the speed of the vibration, right? We'll have remotely assisted surgeries, things like that. If you get into the operations, the supply chains, wow, look at the terminology on the chat box, and that's quite interesting. The thing is, you want to get into areas which really are industries that will really invent technologies of the future, right? When they say this technology will take force 10 years from now, you want to get into the kind of companies that are working in it. Even if you don't get into their R&D organizations, even if you don't get into their, so-called management ranks, you want to get into companies like that, because those are the companies that when you reach your 40s, you will not only be disrupting the world with the technology, but you'll know a lot about that technology. So, what they do, what products they make. So you'll be ready. You will be the most in-demand person in the job market, right? Right. So those who did, for example, did business analytics degrees like 5-6 years ago, 10 years ago, maybe they saw the light, maybe they didn't. Maybe they saw the light, maybe they didn't. But those who did business analytics degrees and those who were the first pioneers of going into artificial intelligence, data science, machine learning courses, those guys are in huge demand right now. Believe me. I mean, my own company J&J in New Jersey is looking for people who have data science experience. They're looking for data scientists, people who've done PhDs and this and that. I mean, not all PhDs do PhDs in data science, but normally those who do PhDs and do a lot of research work, and particularly empirical research work, are normally good data scientists. They don't do data science as an education, but they are data scientists in terms of their skill. So think about the stuff that's going to come 10 years from now and target the companies that are actually working towards those outcomes 10 years from now. Okay? Just think about it. Just think it over like that. Do your research. You know, when someone says, who is that, which is that city in Andhra Pradesh that is going to be the future city of India or something like that? I've forgotten the name. But it's in Andhra Pradesh, not Telangana.
Yeah. Yeah. Capital Amravati. Yeah.
Amaravati, that's right. Now, you all know in Hindu mythology what Amaravati was, right? It was the city where the city of the gods, right? So, if you want to, you know, if you want to get into things like smart cities and things like that, you know, you've got to go and you know, work with the companies or work with the organizations that are building the smart cities of the future, that are building components for, machinery for, technology for, infrastructure for the smart cities of the future. Okay, if you want to work for, you know, they're building the bullet train in India. You know that China, okay, about 15 years ago, China had no high-speed rail. Today, China has something like 25,000 kilometers of high-speed rail. So in 15 years, they built a high-speed rail network that is about a third of India's overall rail network. Right? Now, whether we will build it with that speed in India is an entirely different question. But they have shown us that it has a future. So when you want to work with companies like Siemens, like Hitachi, like ASEA Brown Boveri, like Schneider Electric, all of these companies are actually building electronics and electromechanics to power that smart future, right? So there is actually some worth in working for these sort of companies and not just think about, you know, technology is all about Google or healthcare is all about X or Y or Z. Just think about these things. Just look to the future. Be, you know, it's okay to be a bit of a futurist on these things. Learn, look at, I mean, don't spend time on TikTok, please. Spend time on YouTube videos that will tell you all of this. A nice channel that gives you this sort of education, you know, is think about, you know, Cold Fusion. It's one of the channels. I don't know who it is. It's an Australian fellow who does 17, 18 minute videos of things that go on around the world, right? If any one of you wants to work in aviation, the biggest news in aviation is the 787 MAX or the 737 MAX, right? The 737 MAX, everyone's talking about that thing, that MCAS system that malfunctioned. No, the 737 MAX had a bigger design problem. They tried to fit everything on a 50-year-old airframe. So think about technology in these terms rather than just your smartphones. Okay, think about the future in it's called Cold Fusion. Okay, if you put YouTube and the channel is called Cold Fusion, COLDFUSION. For those of you in computing, you will know the term, but this channel is called Cold Fusion. Okay, so let's move on. I don't know.
Let people also know that you can put your questions in the Q&A box. So I saw a couple of questions, so I'm saying we'll get to those questions a little later. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So if we move, so I mean, not to belabor this slide too much, but start thinking.
Okay.
Sorry, Arun, you were saying?
I think should I move on to the next one or?
Yeah, please go ahead. Please go ahead. Yeah, so I mean, when I say technical knowledge, don't start getting into it. We don't all have to be programmers. Okay, we don't have to all be computer scientists or electrical engineers or mechanical engineers or anything like that. What I'd like us to understand is everything works in this world for a reason. Okay, and there are far too many people on this planet who simply don't know how the hell it works. Okay, people, when we ask them, so how does, you know, there's a trampoline outside. It's a little contraption, you know, where kids jump on it and have a lot of fun. How does that thing work? Anyone have an idea? No, I don't want you to answer it. But the world is simply made up of a lot of things that work. Okay, and technical knowledge is simply to understand how it works, understands how the vacuum cleaner hanging on the Dyson vacuum cleaner hanging on my wall, how does it work? Okay, now don't ask me, I don't know the answer, I'll find out someday. How does a printer on my desk work? How does the screen project images? How do you electronically measure? How do you convert visual signals into electronic signals? Those are simple things. Okay, learn the world around you. Learn simple science around you. Relearn it. It's not the science that you were taught. The mathematics you were taught. There was another joke the other day. We did all of these things. We did mensuration. We did calculus. We did differential equations. We did all of these things in engineering. We did control system, Bode, Nyquist, all of those. So I can't understand a thing. Okay, but if I look at those things today, if I see something that a measuring instrument, if I see a car that gives me feedback, if I see how a machine switches on, what are the control interfaces you've got to do in order to run that machine in a factory, you then understand, that's what I learned. So do think about what sort of knowledge is going to help you with the industries that you want to work in. Okay, let me repeat that slowly. Do think about what sort of knowledge is going to help you in what sort of industries that are going to survive and grow in the future. Okay, and target the education in that manner. What do you want to learn? What do you want to enhance? What do you want to combine? What do you want to complement? What is supplementary? Okay, all of those things you can one of my favorite pastimes. Okay, I'm a senior director at J&J. I mean, I have a great job. Overall, one would say that I'm reasonably successful, but one of my favorite pastimes, and one that my wife keeps giving me a lot of grief about, is how much time I spend on YouTube on these channels, channels like Learn Engineering, Cold Fusion. And if you just go into videos of these two channels, you'll find access to a lot of other channels. I can't name them off my hat right now. But think about what are the great building infrastructure projects of the 20th century, or what are the big things that are happening? What infrastructure projects is China doing in the next year? What is India doing in the next 20 years? There's a lot of knowledge that you can gain simply by watching the right stuff instead of watching the wrong stuff. Okay. Lately, if you are watching too much of Sushant Singh Rajput's murder case or possible murder case on YouTube, sorry, you're watching the wrong thing. Okay, that's what I'm trying to tell you, right? So learn to gain knowledge, seek knowledge. Okay, knowledge is a good thing, right? And when I talk about basic engineering knowledge, you don't have to be an engineer. What is E2E is end to end, by the way. End-to-end product development is not just the product itself, but what component go into it, what modules go into it, how it is actually manufactured, how sustainable the components are, where they are sourced, how they are put together, how it's manufactured, how it's delivered, how it's transported, how it's used by the end customer, and how it is disposed and or recycled. So end to end, it used to be end to end, now it's called earth to earth. Okay. If you heard of the term circular economy, go look it up, learn about it. So that's what I meant to say. Prototyping. Okay, we talk about prototyping. 3D.
Just one thing on that point. Just wanted to reflect on that. So when you said this whole thing about the changing, economy and how people are able to bring the transferable skills. So I just wanted to understand what your perspective on people who actually so right now it's a discovery phase, right?
Mm-hmm.
So while they are going through this discovery phase, is there any advice that you would offer? Like I watch a lot of content on YouTube, right?
Yes.
In fact,
yes.
One of the things that someone used to say earlier that I found very interesting was earlier they used to say that your salary is the average of the 5 people that you hang out with, correct?
Yes.
So now they're saying that your knowledge, your network is the top 10 content creators that you follow, correct?
Yes.
Because that's how you have to keep yourself updated and
True. So one of the things that I always, I mean, um, one of the things that I always, so if you are interested in a certain area, a certain industry, whether when you do your research and come to that industry, firstly, remember, the more it changes from what you've already done, all right, the riskier the change, or the harder you have to work to make that change, right? If you're in a certain industry, and I can see who are already people who are in Siemens and ABB and Schneider, right? So these are, it's one industry. All these companies make electromechanical components, modules, and or full scale machines for various sort of applications. Now the thing is, what are they making machines for the future? For what future are they making what machines? Okay, it is so cool to understand that, right? Through internal blogs, internal technology forums, which of course, where a lot of fairly confidential information is shared. So I can't tell you what it is because I simply would not know. But the more you can connect yourself to the future technologies they're working on, and not just the current ones, the better the career you have. And maybe even if you're working in a company like ABB somewhere in the world, right? If you simply understand and demonstrate within that company the thirst for knowledge to get there and do the things or get into projects or something like that, you're also giving yourself a leg up. Knowledge is not simply freely won, right? Knowledge sometimes has to be worked for. Yeah, but you sometimes, it may not cost you, the thirst for knowledge and the thrust for knowledge may not cost you in terms of money, but it might cost you in terms of effort. You've got to make the effort, give the time, learn, right? But if I wanted to give you specific advice, when you find an area that interests you, let's just say marine sustainability interests you. I mean, it's a random thing, okay? Learn everything you can about first the fundamentals of marine biology, okay? What makes marine life thrive? What makes the marine cycle work? How is marine biology connected to climate change? How is it connected to energy? So if you wanted to do those things, you've got to learn all you can about it. Then when you think about that cycle, who are the sort of companies, whether they are non-profit or corporates or whoever else, who are involved in various things associated with marine biology, okay, or marine, things involving that subject. So I'm just randomly making things up out here, but just bear with me for a second. Wherever you get interested, learn more about it, go deep, right? Each one of the companies that are involved in this area will have product development, will have service development, will have customer development, will have marketing, will have operations, will have manufacturing, or supply chains and operations, right? Learn how those things work. Just learn how they work, right? It's okay. You can actually think, there are things you can learn how it's made, right? Another thing that I discovered on YouTube, how it's made. And it goes into really simple things, right? Yesterday, I was watching a YouTube at night, a video at night. How are tennis rackets made? How many of you play tennis? How many of you play badminton, right? How are basketballs made? How are tennis rackets made? It's fascinating to watch these things, okay? And when now they're talking about how to precision make future tennis rackets, what are the composite materials that will go into making tennis rackets of the 2030s or something like that. It's fascinating stuff, right? For me, it's a bit random, okay? But for you, if you're associating with your career, learn, take interest and learn, okay? Sorry to sound like your mom or your father, but spending time on watching, useless stuff that we consume on our phones and on our computers is not going to help as much as consuming the useful stuff. That's what I'm trying to get at out here. Okay, let's go to the last slide.
Yeah, so interesting point that you mentioned that. So one of the things that I've also noticed is, so there is a Netflix thing that came out recently, The Social Dilemma. I think many of you might have seen that.
Yeah, I haven't.
Probably. So
I haven't.
Yeah, so it talks about how the tech, companies are inherently hacking away at your brain psychology. What has taken millions of years, right, by keeping you hooked onto your phone. right? With just senseless content, right? And the interesting thing is, I was telling them about the course that I did at Stanford, correct? The Stanford Cheat Transformation. And one of the things that they have at Stanford is very interestingly, it's called the Persuasion Lab, right? Like, let
Yeah.
that sink in. Persuasion Lab, they are studying things at a neurochemical level of how to influence user behavior, correct? So I think very interesting things. And also, there are boundaries of ethics that are being crossed over, right? With apps wanting you to stay more and more online, right? So yeah,
Yes.
I just
Yeah.
wanted to keep on that.
No, it's great. It's great. That's a fantastic example. Arun. The message is always, learn. Keep learning, right? What you and very often, this time that you spend on or that we spend, and again, I'm really sorry. I don't want to sound like someone who's telling you what to do or how to live your life. Um, but it's important that these are little things, little insights that I believe you guys need to hear in terms of if you're really serious about, hey, I want to do this, and if you're really serious about doing it in a manner that say, hey, I want to do this, I want to do this for the long term. This is the, and if you're looking for advice, this is the advice I can give, right? So I
So
won't.
just wanted to add one thing on that, Hari. Sorry to interject on that. So
Sure,
I just
sure.
wanted to congratulate the audience also, because on a Friday evening, the very fact that they have taken off 1 hour off that calendar, correct, and they are
Exactly.
listening
That's
to
fantastic.
it's good
Fantastic.
news,
Yeah.
because it tells me that they are doers, right? I mean, they could have just sat and watched more Netflix,
Yeah,
but they're
or watch more Netflix, or well,
right.
in a non-pandemic time, you would have gone out with friends, had dinner, had a drink, things like that. So, well, thank you for taking the time for joining up and listening to this. Really, I really appreciate it. As does, I'm sure, Arun, as you've heard him. The next slide, I won't spend too much time. Okay, I mean, it's a question of again going back to what I asked you earlier. Look, it's 15, 18 years ago, I was also, there was this booth around MBA, things like that. And maybe, but if I were you now, okay, if I were 28, 30 years old again now, um, I wonder if I would have, if the decision to go do an MBA would have been out as straightforward as it was 15 years ago. Like I said, a lot of things have changed, right? There was no LinkedIn in 2004 when I was applying to colleges. I don't know, was there any, Arun? I don't think so. There was no Facebook. Yeah,
Orkut.
there was Orkut, it was terrible. There
Yeah.
was MySpace, which was even worse. But there was nothing like Facebook. There was nothing like LinkedIn. There was nothing like a lot of other things that are there today. The amount of there was no YouTube. I think YouTube came out 2003 or four or something like that. But the content at that time was nowhere near what we can actually see on YouTube today. So, guys, think it carefully. All right, will an MBA really offer you, or would you want to do things that will truly help you future adapt yourself a few years from now? Is an MBA going to help you, or is a master's degree in advanced engineering, advanced data science, advanced automotive technologies, or advanced finance or advanced financial technologies, or things like that going to help you? Okay, just open your eyes, learn around you, think about 10 years from now, think about the outcomes, think about the industries that are working towards those outcomes, think about the skills you need to gain in order to work for the industries that are working towards those outcomes 10, 20 years from now, and then think about your education. Don't just blindly follow the crowd into an MBA. Everybody will not go to Harvard. Harvard is not the be all and end all. I've seen a lot of really successful people who have not gone to Harvard. Okay, just like I've seen a lot of successful Indians who have not gone to IIT, right? So I'd like you all to keep the faith, all right, and just look forward with discipline. Okay, there's a lot of things that I've told you today involve the old world values of discipline, diligence, persistence, all of those old world values, in addition to your intelligence, which all of you have. It all makes you more adaptable. It makes you more survivable, right? Um, in a future that gets disrupted far more frequently than the past was. I'm going to stop here. Um, any last comments from Arun? And then I don't know, Arun, how this works? You want to open it up to questions and things like that?
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic kind of point that you wanted to just. So I just want to let them know that one of the things that we wanted to do at Crackverbal, Hari, and one of the reasons we have called you is I have a lot of students who come to me for GMAT, right? So I am a GMAT tutor, but there is also another part of me which is I understand I'm an entrepreneur, right? So I look at it, I know what are the skills that are required out there in the real world, and I have friends like you and people who are really passionate about helping students have that kind of career clarity. So what we are trying to do here at Crackverbal is not really go and say, hey, I want you to take the GMAT, correct? So one of the things that we keep telling people is GMAT is nothing but means to the end. In fact, even an MBA is not a means to the end, correct? So think about where you want to, and let us make sure that we are trying to get a lot more content. In fact, that's a good segue that we have, and Rachel has also shared the link. So in case we have a team of experts, so we cannot get into a call. Try to explain, because even before you get into the GMAT and MBA journey, I think there are some questions that we can hopefully.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. In those cases, you can do it yourself. In those cases, you can also seek help.
Right.
But most importantly, right, when you want to do that evaluation, take it seriously. That's all I can ask you. Whether you do it yourself or whether you do it with the help of people like Arun, and I'm not Arun. I'm not marketing Arun here. So please, he and I do not have that sort of an equation. But whoever it is, whether it's Arun, whether it's someone else, take it seriously. Okay, go deep. Come out with sort of discovering yourself. I know it sounds very Baba-ish. Sorry, but come out there seriously discovering yourself. Okay.
So, Hari, I think what you were saying is actually because see, I've also just to kind of give people perspective that when we work, so I work with clients on the admission services. So people think it's about writing the essays, and many a times it's not about writing the essays. It's about getting clarity for their career. So I always try to look at myself as a career coach rather than GMAT, because so I'll give an example. So there is a question that's come in the Q&A box. So I'll start taking some questions over here. Hari, this was one of the students I had actually reached out to you. So this was a marine engineer from Shell who wanted to be in renewable energy, correct?
Yes.
And so the question that we have is, we have someone who's a ship's engineer, and he's gathered. They typically get into supply chain and operations, right?
Yes. Yes.
He's saying that I wish to know what companies one should look for if thinking about operations, anything apart from Amazon and Uber. Also, if possible, to venture into renewable energy industry post MBA. If yes, what steps should I take in terms of getting into renewable energy? So what I'll do is I'll just kind of quickly kind of mention what I was saying in terms of that student. So we had a similar student who had come in, and you had advised something on that. So I think that's where I remember you had some insights on this. So you could just go ahead and.
Sure. So firstly, renewable energy. So strangely enough, an IMD candidate asked me this question a few years ago. Right? He was an Eastern European bloke who said, "I want to get into renewable energy." Okay, so all right. Here's a windmill, my friend. Here's a wind turbine. Okay, they were called windmills in our stories of Don Quixote, or they are called windmills if they walk into Amsterdam. But they are called wind turbines right now. So I asked him the very simple question: explain to me in the next 2 or 3 minutes how a wind turbine works. And I didn't want to say that, you know, the blades spin, the blades move, and something is there. So how does it work, and how does it actually, how is energy actually delivered? He was lost, right? Okay, can you explain how a geothermal probe heats up a home? He was lost. He couldn't answer the question. So whoever is asking this question, I see the name Sahil. Sahil, if you're asking that question, so here is my first thing for you. Okay, if you want to get into the renewable energy space and you haven't done that as part of education or understanding, learn everything you can first. Before you go deciding I want to do an MBA or not do an MBA, learn everything you can about it. Okay, be able to speak authoritatively about it. Look for people in LinkedIn, and people are willing to help. There's always a few assholes, but you don't have to speak with them. You discover them, but there are always people who are willing to help. I'm not a renewable energy expert, but I do know what a renewable energy expert looks like and sounds like, right? So you really want to, just like I'm not a teaching expert, but I know when Arun explains to me about teaching people how to write the GMAT, yeah, okay, that makes sense. That sounds like an expert and probably is an expert. So you've got to be able to speak the nuts and bolts of renewable energy, all right, before you go out and say, you go out and are deemed as deserving of a career, particularly if you haven't done it before, right? So I'd strongly recommend, if you want to get into renewable energy, start reading up on it, start learning it, okay? One of the greatest advantages you guys have, okay, we didn't have it, but you guys have, is learning platforms, open learning platforms or massive learning platforms like edX and Coursera and Udemy and Emeritus and whatnot, okay? edX and Coursera are brilliant. You can actually learn, you can actually take a MicroMasters course or a certificate course in renewable energy, not for anything else, but think of it as an investment of about whatever, 30, 40,000 rupees, where you walk in and you walk out with the ability to speak about renewable energy in at least reasonably technical terms. Okay, if Siemens, you want to get into, let's just say Siemens has a well-developing renewable energy business. So you ask you, so what does Siemens produce that is related to renewable energy? Okay, so Siemens doesn't produce the turbines themselves, doesn't produce the towers that hold the blades. They don't produce that. They produce it, but they produce the motors, they produce the generators, they produce everything that captures, transforms, and distributes electrical energy, right? So how do they do that? What do they build, right? The turbines are built by companies like Vestas, Vestas, right? So what does Vestas do? What do they build the turbine blades with? So what makes a good turbine blade versus a bad turbine blade? What's the future technology of turbine blades? Turbine blades were ordinarily started making out, they were made of a combination of metal and of steel, basically. Then they became aluminum, and now they are totally composites. Tomorrow they might be graphene materials. They are light but super powerful, right? So how does renewable energy work? We can all count as renewable energy are produced by wind, produced by tides, produced by geothermals, produced by hydropower, whatever else, or even nuclear power, right? But how does it work? What goes into it? What is the infrastructure needed? That's important, okay? That answer?
So just
start from there.
Hari, I think that we have this. So we have about 12, 13 minutes. We can go till about 10 o'clock. So we have about 12, 13 minutes. So I just wanted to quickly plug in one thing, which is someone was asking about this. So So a lot of content that we're going to come out with in Crackverbal is actually this. In fact, the next episode, so to speak, that we have is this young girl. She's actually in her fourth year college in IIT Delhi, right? And she has gotten through like almost all Ivy League schools, right? It's a very different story because coming in with someone who's very young. But what is remarkable is having that clarity, right, of where they were headed. So our endeavor is to basically get. So we are on a bunch of our YouTube channel. We will be anyways putting this also, but we are also hoping to get other things. One more question someone asked, which is slight interest to me. So at Crackverbal also we have seen a transformation. So you mentioned about industry. So we are in the ed tech sector. So we are looking for people in marketing. We are looking for people in product. When I say product, the software tech product part of things. So a bunch of things that are happening at Crackverbal. Do write into us at you can connect with us on social media. And, I'm pretty sure you know how to get in touch with us. So I'm going to. So Hari, you are able to see the questions. So I'm just looking at.
I am able to see the questions. I am able to see the questions. Let's quickly go in. As someone,
I think it's a good question to pick up the one that especially when you're looking at COVID. We did talk about it, but I think.
Okay. So, given the COVID situation, job opportunities are quite slacking. Of course, job in like a fast story. What would you suggest going for an MBA in 2021, or is it wise to wait for another year's experience? I understand. Firstly, let me start by saying that we were. This COVID has come at a time which has really hurt a lot of people. Okay, so we don't know, we can't always pretend to understand how bad things are, but but you have our complete empathy, right? So I'm perfectly committing that wherever I can assist you, either minimally with advice. I don't know if I can do much else at this point, but minimally with advice, I would do my best. But what you guys are facing is quite unprecedented, and hopefully the lessons you will learn here will keep you adaptable for the future. So that's something I want to put out there, and it's important, right? When we talked about adaptability in the last hour or so. Would you suggest going for an MBA in 2021, dude? I don't know whether. Sorry, it's not a dude. It's Pooja, right? So my apologies. Look, I would think about it's all about where you want to work and what you want to learn. Okay, if the industry that you are in and you want to stay there, and we talked about the future, we talked about the outcomes, we talked about the industries working towards those outcomes, we talked about the things you want to do to achieve those outcomes. If you feel you're absolutely ready to go for an MBA or any education, let's not talk about it just in terms of an MBA, any education that is going to help you get to that future and will help you get into the companies working towards that future, go for it. Really, okay? Education is not likely to get, well, unless you find flexible ways to do it. If you want to leave your current career and go do it full time, education is not likely to get cheaper, right? So, you can wait for it 2 years, but you don't know what's coming 2 years from now, a year from now, or 2 years from now. Okay, if you feel ready, if you don't, this is all about you. Your education is about you. It's not just about the world around you. They all either enable the situation or create roadblocks. But using the situation, riding the wave, or overcoming the roadblocks is your decision. Okay, if you feel you are ready to go mentally, don't let it stop you. Answer the question. Did that answer the question? Just make sure whatever you're doing follows the principle, right? Is it helping you stay employable and adaptable and survivable 10 years from now? That's the question. It's not whether you want to do the MBA, whether it's an MBA or anything else. Okay. Anything else you want me to take? This is interesting. So, farm and agricultural technology. Sorry, go ahead.
So I think there was just this question on masters in engineering management, masters in information systems, which are kind of a hybrid course between a pure technical and a management kind of course. So I think Karthik had a question on that.
Well, it's an interesting one. Yeah, thanks for the question, Karthik. It's an interesting one. So what will you learn it for, right? Now, more than the curriculum, more than just a plain old curriculum out there, try and find out what sort of projects those guys do. Okay, what sort of projects, what sort of companies, what sort of jobs they get into. Try and understand whether those are the kind of jobs you want to get into. Okay, right? And then make a choice. Try and connect to alumni of courses like these and see what they are getting into, what they are doing, and try and imagine, try and connect them back to this 10-year future industry function, what you want to do, what you need to learn sort of equation. Okay, put it into that little sort of thought process and see whether it works for you. And then you choose the course, choose the program.
So
Okay.
I think that's a fantastic thing, and I have a question from Omkar, which is
Yes.
similar to the point that you mentioned, which is there is fresh perspective, there is network, but what could someone look for? Is there like set of parameters that you would suggest for people looking at a program, how they could evaluate it?
Certainly the curriculum is one. Okay.
Right.
The kind of research that the professors do is another. Okay. Go deep into the curriculum and say, hey, if someone is teaching you, something like robotics, what do we learn? Okay. And last but not least, one way, and this is brilliant, right? This is where for these massive open platforms are also sort of offering. I mean, there's a low investment way for you to pressure test something. Okay, you want to learn management information systems. Management information systems, business analytics, AI, ML, DS, all of those things are sort of mixed and matched a bit. Go take a certificate course or take a free course in one of these massive open onlines. Don't worry about the mode of teaching, but just think about what you learn from this. Okay, is it what you want to learn? Right? That's an important one. Someone coming from the medical device industry, that's what Omkar is coming. Hi, Omkar. I think you're the J&J alum, right? So, what your advice for him or her to advance their technical knowledge? I think. Look, if you were in the field of medical devices, you can. There's a lot more to learn. There's a lot more advanced medical, diagnostic, imaging, surgical technologies. The hardware desire to get out there. I don't know whether the person asking the question is a scientist or an engineer or a doctor. Okay, but depending on the depth of knowledge that you understand about medicine, about the human body, about anatomy and things like that, try and learn. Look at marketing. I think if you're going to do marketing, one of the first things you need to understand is the customer base, right? How are customers going to evolve? If customers are going to evolve, where are they evolving? Where are technologies being tested out first? On whom are they being tested out first? What types of them? What are the kinds of, imagine, how will you market minimally invasive surgery, not just to future surgeons, but future medical colleges who will teach FRCS or Master of Surgery or those sort of specialist doctors new surgical techniques. How are you going to market them for the future? You market. I'm sorry.
Sorry, you said something?
No. I think I heard a voice in the
Oh, no.
yeah.
No.
So sort of think about
5 minutes.
Yeah.
So just wanted to say we have about 5 minutes. Just wanted to give a sense of the being the.
So there's a lot of questions.
I think what I can do is I can probably just say that we have already shared the link, so they can reach out to us, and maybe I just wanted to pick the last two questions, Hari. So one of them is from Dheeraj, where he talks about the fact that MBA and technology are two sides of the same coin. Wherever there is new products and technology,
So first, an important thing when I read the sentence, MBA is not a skill. So the skills driven by an MBA, an MBA doesn't give you skill, only experience gives you skill. An MBA gives you an education to get into an environment where the skills are developed through application of your education. Okay, so that's an important, there is an important, your other part, the middle sentence is absolutely right. Wherever there is technology, there are revolutionary products. Wherever there are products, there are supply chains, marketing, sales networks, consulting, so on and so forth. Just a little difference out here, okay? Amongst all those functions that you have listed, right? Marketing, sales, strategy, business development, and potentially finance are the least differentiable. Okay, the least differentiable. A hybrid of the more technical functions like operations, product developments, networking and technology, and the associated parts around consulting for it are a little more differentiable, are a little more survivable, okay, over the long term. It's just, I'm just speaking from experience too. Okay, I've seen a lot of corporate environments where the first roles to go in any white collar transformation, okay, are the roles that spell strategy, you know, center of excellence or process or something else that is not immediately P&L or performance driving or product driving. Okay, and that's the answer to your question. So whatever you learn from an MBA, okay, it may help you, but remember the skills that you need to get, the functions that are really going to survive over the long term, that are not perhaps the MBA or MS or anything else. Okay, you're quite right. You could do an MBA and you could just as easily go there. All right. The most important thing, more than whether it's an MBA or anything else, is what outcome, what industry, what function is most survivable and adaptable for the 10, 12 years that follow your whatever an MBA is or something else. Is that a helpful answer, Dheeraj? And you know, if it's not, then you know, I will try and do better next time. But
no, I think Hari, it's all a question of perspective, and I think one of the things that we wanted to do through this, you know, and I just wanted to let the audience know that, you know, when Hari and I discuss, one of the things that we don't like to do is pontificate, tell you what you should be doing sitting in some throne. We are just saying these are things that you should think about. These are frameworks, right? And I think, you know, I think fundamentally, Hari, today's session was, according to me, fantastic because, you know, if I were to look at it from the student's perspective, this is questions that we get, you know, every time. People think that this is new to me, right? That this question, this situation is very unique, and I don't think, you know, anybody else. But because we have seen it across so many students, we are also able to see some patterns, right? We are able to see some frameworks of how, and you know, for us, taking the GMAT and doing an MBA is just one way in which you can get to your goal, but not definitely the only way to get that, right? So,
agreed. Some very interesting questions. You know, adventure sportsman,
right.
certified mountaineer, and paraglider. Wow, you must be one of the coolest guys in your gang. Again, so just to finish that, how to proceed in a career? Look for companies that make this stuff. That's simple.
Right.
Look for what they do, how it makes. Think about how a paraglider is made. That's it. There you go. And you will want to learn more. Believe me.
Right.
Okay.
So I think, Hari, that was fantastic, and thank you so much. So I understand how busy you are, how tight your schedule is, and for you to take out time and come, and I'm pretty sure a lot of guys over here, you know, I'm pretty sure they're leaving with more questions than they came with, right? But that's the beauty.
Yeah, hopefully it's the right questions.
Right?
I think it's
Correct.
it's
Right.
hopefully the right questions, you know.
Right. Right. So I definitely imagine that, it is kind of this. So I think thanks so much. And thank you, everyone. As I said already, if you ask me what is the difference between, the people who win in life and people who end up complaining, is winners show up, right? So the fact that you guys showed up today tells me is encouraging to see that you guys are motivated. So let's get this conversation on. Just make sure that you reach out to us. So thanks, Hari, and we will stay in touch.
Thank you, everyone.